Hello! Today I'll be looking at what's in this exciting box from Foxeer, but just before we get into that, a quick reminder to please like or dislike this video if you didn't like it, comment down below, don't forget to subscribe, and if you can find that little bell icon, click on it, and depending on YouTube's mood, it might tell you when I'm uploading stuff. For today, we have the Foxeer Predator 5 micro camera. Now, I looked at the Predator 4 micro before, and this has got a few differences, one of which is the fact that it's now a sort of full frame camera. I think you can get the less full frame if you go for the race option, but I kind of like to have cameras fully enclosed. But let's open up the box and I'll show you what we get. We get some stickers, get the camera itself. It's available in red or black. This is the black one. It's got a 1.7mm lens on the back there, and I'll show you close up. Aside from having the normal OSD and the normal inputs for power, ground and video, it's also got a V-Sense, so it has its own OSD which will show you your battery voltage, time it's been on, your name, and according to the box here, a crosshair if you want it. We'll get to that in a second once we go down and have a close-up look. But also in the box, and Foxeer are pretty good for this about putting extra bits and pieces in. There is a little box in the bottom, and this box has mounting screws and little washers. I don't think they're rubber, but it's sort of a plastic type washer, a cable, and the little OSD thingy. Doesn't have any extra mounting hardware. They've got a single mount hole on each of the sides, and this is a 19x19mm camera. Normally you only need the adapters when you've got 14 going to a 19, but it kind of depends where you mount it. But let's go into close-up, let's have a close look at what we've got here, and then I can decide what we're going to put it in and how we're going to test it. So here's the camera in close-up, and you can see that 1.7mm lens there, and at the back you've got your extra pin for the voltage sensor. Although usually what happens, and I'll see if this is the same, is that if it doesn't get anything specifically on that, then it will tell you the voltage based on what's going in your normal VCC. And the included cables, as mentioned, you've got the normal OSD and you've got some solder plugs here. The spacing on this is the same as what I would call the normal camera, so if you're going into an existing model as I am, you can pretty much just miss out that extra pin and stick the connector straight in. So I'll be using, yet again, this dude to put the camera in. Now this is a bit bigger than the norm, so what I'll be using is this little adapter plate to make things a bit bigger. This is kind of getting on a bit, this quad, so I tend to think that you normally won't have to think about that size. This is a big old space there, but yeah, just it doesn't come with mounting, so just be aware that this is a standard 19x19mm, and you will need to make sure that it will go in. I'd kind of like it, I think, a little bit more if they had more than just one hole there. I've kind of got used to like a couple of holes, which are really good because you can sort of use one to tilt and one to tighten, and that holds it in better. But let's see how this works. It's going to be obviously tucked in this one anyway, so it should hold it nicely. Anyway, let's get that installed and then we'll take another look, see what's on the OSD. Okay, so we're all installed. You see we've got the camera in there. And I had to use that additional mount that I talked about before, and I've left the OSD plugged in so we can take a look. A bit more to figure out this one. There's not just a normal OSD of camera settings, there's obviously the included one that talks about the voltage and your name and that sort of thing, so hopefully it's on the same menu. Sometimes it's different things. So let's plug this in. What we're going to be looking at today is Glenn from The Walking Dead, back when The Walking Dead was good. Okay, here we go. Fun fact, this is my third time filming this. First time I had a battery problem with the screen. A second time, it turned out that this screen wasn't doing it right. This is what I'm using for my little reference, and I was recording with this. You'll see that everything looks like it's on the screen, but the DVR seemed to be recording in NTSC, so everything else was chucked off the bottom and you couldn't see it. However, I'm now watching this but recording with my Fat Sharks, and I've checked that and that looks good. Hooray. Anyway, I've learned a lot about doing this multiple times, but I'll go through it again just to show you what's up. Okay, so you can see the Foxeer stuff on there. What I'm going to just do is turn my own OSD off, which I've got on a switch there, and we can see the Foxeer stuff there. Now if I say camera ID off and exit, it kind of looks like everything's turned off, but I know from experience that at some point some of it will come back. I think the idea of the camera ID is it just sets whether your name is off, and at the moment the name's set to Foxeer, and if I was to press return on this bit, I can then change the name to something else. As you see, it's Foxeer at the moment. You could obviously change it to your name or something similar. I'll leave it on for now because I'll come back and show how these bits are turned on and off. Pick adjust, kind of the normal sorts of menus here, the brightness, contrast, sharpness, hue, colour gain. And day night is set to auto by default. I'm going to change that to manual and set it to colour. Your other option is of course black and white. I like colour. And then you've got the language and the camera reset. So let's exit out of that, save all that stuff. Right, now there's the way to get into the Foxeer menu is to hold up, but I whilst trying to find that, I found also that if you hold the right button, it cycles through the different light options. So we had LED there, black and white, and day, which is interesting. But if we hold up now, this is the Foxeer menu, and you see we've got time and power. We can set a voltage alarm, which I think is pretty useful. VCAL, I think that's probably a voltage offset. I haven't really checked. It's got the mode there again. It's got the type of signal you have, which is maybe what was cocking it up. I noticed this in my last one. When I changed it to NTSC, my recording was absolutely fine. It's just like this thing's stuck getting into NTSC, and I can just see actually on my recording this has screwed it up somewhat. So let me go back to PAL. Basically, it seems DVR recorders, when they get going, they don't like you to change the signal. Well, I don't know if this is just putting out a really weird signal, but that completely locked up the goggles, and they just weren't happening anymore. So let's just double check I'm back in the right mode now. Come out of that, go back up here. Yeah, we're in PAL. The other thing we can do is change the aspect ratio to 16:9 or 4:3. I've got 16:9 goggles, and you've got a crosshairs option as well. So if I exit out of that, you can see we've got the name, the voltage, and it's 5 volts because of course that's coming in from my flight controller, but we've got a separate line that we could connect our battery to, or a different battery if we wanted to, and that would give us that voltage. Obviously I don't want any of that, so I'm going to turn all this off, and off, exit out of that, and you see we still get the name there, and this is where it comes up about your camera ID, so we're going to set that to off as well, exit out of that, save everything, and then I should be able to go back and turn my OSD back on, and all is good. Thanks for your work there, Glenn. Third time lucky. I'm hoping this has come out. I'm recording it in 3 places now. Anyway, with that all set up and done, I'm happy. Let's get it to the field and let's try and fly this thing. Hello, if you can hear me, because that wind is blowing through pretty strongly. It's not really moving the trees that much, but it's strong and it's not particularly warm. Yeah, we got the camera, we're ready to test it. And apologies to everybody who keeps saying why you keep testing the cameras in gorgeous sunshine. I mean, it's not amazing today, but it's not overcast as we'd normally get in England. Simple answer to this one is I basically look for any day that's worth flying, and that means a day that's not raining or isn't blowing a complete gale. Today isn't quite a complete gale, but it's getting there. But seriously, it's been rain, 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 rain. Here's a clear day. It's a possibility to get out and fly. So whether that's overcast or clearer today, that's it really. If there's a flyable day, I will try and make it a flyable day. Anyway, on with the test. Oh, one quick change to the configuration of this little one is I got rid of the Velcro, put that Your UAV sticky stuff on that I reviewed before, just so I could basically start getting rid of Velcro on these quads. Okay, so let's get up in the air for this maiden before we get blown away completely. And first impression of this camera was a bit weird, because what I'd done is I'd just taken out the Calyx Nebula Micro to put this one in, and the footage in the DVR looks exactly the same, to the point that I actually landed the quad and I checked that I did actually swap the camera, and I had. And it's not a good thing. I didn't think the Nebula Micro was particularly good as an FPV camera. It was just the fact that it doubled up as an HD camera for plugging into the DJI system as well, which made it a little bit more interesting. But yeah, so first impression is it's all a bit meh, really. I mean, it's going fine when you go with the sun behind you, as it is now. The problem is, I think, when you turn into the sun, the way it handles the light there is not very good. It darkens things out too much, and for me, it was spoiling my view. I mean, I did a thing here where I sort of went back along the tree line with the sun in this difficult position, and I really couldn't see much, which is one of the reasons I hit that branch there. But coming along here, I just didn't have the detail that I felt I would usually get in my goggles, so that's not great. And don't forget, we're dealing with, I say, fairly good lighting conditions. Obviously the sun's quite low in the sky, and that does make things more difficult for cameras, because instead of being sort of way up in the sky lighting, sometimes you're going to be going directly into the sun, and that's always a struggle. And when the sun's behind you, as it is now, it's a lot easier. Also, I didn't really like the colour reproduction. It didn't seem quite right, with the blue especially is a little bit weird. The green's not too bad, but yeah, the blue. And you can see the trees in the distance there. They're just kind of a bit of a mush of sort of brown smear, which isn't very good. You will notice I'm not going out very far in this. I think I've damaged one of the active elements on my antennas, so the RSSI is dropping to about 50, even though I'm sort of within 100 meters or so. But what was more interesting, I think, is what happened on the next couple of flights, because what happened is we got some cloud cover, and so it became a little bit more overcast, which stresses the conditions a little bit more. So here we go with battery number 2, and it's not that it's not bright still, but we've got just a few more clouds about, which I thought was an interesting test. Again, sun behind us this way, all looking good. I am liking the 1.7mm lens because it gives a nice wide angle. It lets me be able to get decent speed with decent lean. But look at this. Look when you go into the sun. Look how dark those trees look now. That's really quite unpleasant. And the sun is still out in the sky here. I just started noticing during this flight that conditions were getting worse, and thus the brightness was getting worse. So let's jump forward a few minutes, and the clouds starting to cover the sun. I'm trying to go the reverse way through this overgrown section, and it's really quite difficult to pick out sort of individual little branches and twigs and stuff. I mean, to be fair, it always is on an FPV camera, but some of them show up better than others, and this one is not showing up particularly well. And overall, it now looks a little bit dim. I mean, it's still not bad. That blue looks surprisingly blue, considering it's really not that bright. And the green down the other field looks a little bit bright as well. But you can see the floor darken a little bit as that sun's now behind the cloud. Again, this is evidenced slightly more in the third flight. So here we are on my last battery of the day, and it's a little bit more overcast again. Really useful to have these changing conditions. You can see the camera in all sorts of conditions. Looking pretty dim now, and again, it's not really quite this dim in real life, but when we go in towards the sun there, it's even more of a weird sort of blur. It's like there's a slight lens flare over the worst darkened bit of the woods that make it seem even worse, because it's bad enough that you're going towards something where the light's not very good, but when you get a lens flare over the top of it as well, it just looks like it's gone kind of misty and stuff, which is really odd. Really odd. Anyway, so I'm not liking this, because if there was something there in that field, I really couldn't pick it out. I mean, we'd get to it eventually and we'd be able to see, but it's really not a great situation. Now, at this last battery, I realised that I hadn't really gone up high and done a quick test to see how it looked. So up we go, because I want to see if there's sort of a jello on the horizon and stuff. And to be fair, this is looking pretty good. The only weird thing about this was that that wind I mentioned really did blow the quad. I'm sort of sat up here thinking, that's weird, I don't normally have this many trees, and yeah, I've been blown over quite a way than I'd normally be.
So yeah, windy day. So I'm not worried about the slight jumpiness in this quad. It's nothing to do with the camera. It's everything to do with the wind. But camera wise, yeah, not particularly impressed. Really not impressed with the light handling. The colour is okay. You know, make of it what you will, because it's very much personal opinion. People didn't like the little Ants Nano when it sort of overexposed the sun in order to get detail in the shadows, but I much prefer that to having it expose the sun perfectly and make everything dark. But just showing a landing here with that 1.7mm lens, which is nice and wide, so I can have a decent tilt and still land it relatively well, although I kind of missed the map.
Well, that I'm afraid is a little bit meh. And I seem to remember in my head that all Foxeer cameras before had been really good, and I generally like them, but that's not exactly true. I went back and I checked the sort of stuff I looked at before, and it was a real mixed bag. So the Pico Razor that I recently looked at, really liked it, but then if I go back a bit further and look at the Falcor 2, didn't particularly like that one, quite a similar image to this one. Go back again, there was a little CCD camera called the Arrow Mini, that was really good, but if I look at the previous version of the Predator 4, that was sort of similar as well. So it kind of depends how they've made it. I guess it's the sensor or something in the camera that's changing it and has the difference between the colour and the way it handles light. But yeah, I don't particularly like this one. I don't mean to be so fussy, but with so many decent cameras about, you don't have to compromise on, you know, not getting the right colour or the right lighting. But as I said, it's very subjective. If you saw those pictures and you like it, be my guest. Otherwise, the Caddx Ratel, in my opinion, still the best overall camera you can get. Either the baby or the full-size one. Fantastic camera. I like it under all conditions thus far until something better comes along. Anyway, this little guy in here has been the Foxeer Predator 5 micro camera and was kindly supplied for review by Banggood, so many thanks to them. And of course there'll be links down below if you want to check out in more detail. I'll also put some links into some of the cameras I've really liked in the past as well, especially the Ratel, because I thought that was super duper and still hasn't been beaten. If you think there's a better camera out there that I haven't looked at and is better than a Ratel, then let me know and I will try and get hold of it for you and give it a test. Anyway, hope the review's been helpful. I'll catch you next one. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.